Now, secondary succession occurs in areas that once had a stable ecosystem, which has undergone some kind of significant disturbance, right? It might be through human activities, farming, mining, building, whatever it is. It could be a natural process like fire or flood or cyclone. So regardless of regardless of how it happens, the natural cycles of matter and energy flowing through the community are disturbed, they're interrupted, and they need to reach equilibrium again. So secondary succession is all about rebuilding a community where one was previously. This doesn't mean that the same type of ecosystem is going to reappear where it once was. It might be completely new, a completely new one replacing the old one. So in regions undergoing secondary succession, a really important point is that there is most likely still going to be soil present. So if this is the case, there's the possibility that seeds and bulbs are laying dormant. They can regrow immediately when the resources are available again. And this makes secondary succession so much faster as a process than primary succession. Now, eventually the ecosystem is aiming to return to a type of climax community, and this marks the end of succession. I say end in inverted commas, but this is always theoretical. There's always going to be change. So climax communities are really slow growing, but long-lived, and they're full of those K-selected species. Remembering that those pioneer species at the beginning of growing that primary succession, they are those fast R-selected ones, whereas we're aiming for endpoint climax community full of K-selected species. The environments are then pretty stable with regard to the energy and nutrient cycling when you measure it over time, and the species in this community will find a nice niche. They'll outcompete others, they'll partake in all of those really complex interactions when there is good biodiversity. Some examples of secondary succession, they're far more common and far more understandable than primary, far more relatable, I should say. We could be discussing an area of farmland that's been abandoned and it is eventually reclaimed by local plants and animals, so it's often called rewilding. Soil would be available to assist in the regrowth of vegetation. Seed dispersal from local areas would assist, so those seeds just blow in nice and easy. So revegetation is really easy. There's a lot of light available, all that kind of stuff. It could be post bushfire, where vegetation grows back and animals return to inhabit the area again. Now, obviously, it's a lot easier to grow a plant from its burnt stump, but as opposed to, say, bare ground. So in this situation, your soils would all contain dead organic matter, which is really enriching and can actually help all those leftover plants that are there to grow, and any dormant seeds can regrow really quickly. Now we need to be able to distinguish between primary and secondary succession, so really quick summary here. It doesn't mean there aren't a lot of other ways we can distinguish between these two processes. Colonize versus recolonize, slow and fast, R-selected, mostly K-selected, low biodiversity and biomass as opposed to high in that secondary succession. We're starting from a better base, essentially. Really simple interactions, we start a bit higher off here and small amounts of low quality soil, but we actually have good quality soil here. There are a really large number of really good representations of how this process works as well. We're starting from nothing, we're getting there, hey, maybe there's that disturbance, and then the secondary succession happens again. When you zoom in on just the species within the community which grow during the processes of succession, we can also do a comparison of that as well. So you've got your pioneer species and your climax species, and again, we're talking very different ends of the spectrum here. So you can see the different kinds of growth curves as well, their lifespans very different, and how quickly they can germinate, things like that. So 4 good points, a very interesting topic and a nice easy one to be able to distinguish between two particular concepts.